Today we're talking about human design. We've been talking a lot about human design because I was introduced to human design 5 years ago and it literally changed everything for me. It changed the way I lived. It changed the way I made decisions. It changed the way I did my business, and it changed how many businesses I had. So there's so many nuggets that come from human design. For those of you who don't know what human design is, it is an energetic blueprint of who you are. So it basically brings us back and it tells us who we're designed to be, how we're designed to interact with the world, how we're designed to live and make decisions. It's kind of like an owner's manual for you. And it's based on your time, date, and place of birth. So it's very unique and specific to you. And it's information, we come into the world as we are, and then we're conditioned away. We learn things through school, through our parents, through our peers. We learn how not to be ourselves, quite frankly. And then we reach a point in life and we realize, wait a minute, there's more to life. I don't feel like I'm fulfilled. I don't feel like I'm doing exactly what I need to be doing. Who am I and what am I here to do? And then during that phase of my life, found human design. And that's when I got the roadmap or an owner's manual into who I was designed to be. And it literally changed everything. And then I shared it with a group of women. We were having a mastermind back in 2020. And I was so excited about it. I shared it with all the women that were in the mastermind. And there were a few women in the mastermind that really took in that information and started experimenting with it in their own life. And human design is an experiment because we don't know how to be who we are. The world doesn't support us being authentic in who we are. And so it's an experiment of figuring that out. Human design doesn't give us all the answers. It gives us like a blueprint. And then we get to experiment with that, and life will show us how life is designed to work specifically for us. So it's a beautiful, beautiful process, sometimes frustrating, sometimes exhilarating. So I wanted to bring on a very dear friend of mine, Casie Rivas, who owns Rivas Law. And she was in the mastermind that year, and she took that information in. And then we spent the whole next year really diving into the authenticity of who she was and how she was designed to be and do her business. And it literally changed everything for her as well. And so I invited her to come and talk to us and kind of take us on a journey from her perspective of how human design influenced her and how it has been, what the outcome has been for her with her human design. So we're going to go on a little bit of a journey through her experience and what she's done. And I'm so excited to be talking to her because we always have the best conversations ever. And I'm excited to bring her energy to the world as well. So Casie, thank you for being a part of this, and thank you for joining me today.
Absolutely. Always excited to talk to
Yeah.
you, especially.
Yes. Okay. So when I first met you, you had just started Rivas Law, your law firm. You had an idea of a vision of what you wanted to bring to the world, but it was very different than what anybody else was doing. And you were trying to fit in to the world of lawyering. Like how do you have a practice? And there's a whole lot of people that were saying this is how you develop a law practice, a successful law practice. But you felt in your gut there was a different way to do it. You just didn't know how to access that different way of doing it. And so that's kind of like a preamble of how we met, when we met, and where you were at with that. And so talk to me a little bit about when you first were introduced to human design. What was your first experience of that? When you first heard about it, what did you think?
So, I mean, I remember we were in the business mastermind group, working on our businesses when you brought human design to us, just the introduction and the idea of it. And I believe that God gives us ways to figure ourselves out.
Mhm.
Just like he gives, he brings knowledge to scientists and to doctors, and they figure out our inner workings. I think he provides people who can bring clarity to our minds, our personality. And so, at first, I kind of assumed it was a like every other personality test that we've taken at college and at work, and those always bring insight, right? And every time you do a personality test,
Mhm.
it brings insight into how you respond or how your coworkers respond, and it's an outward response to life, and they're very predictive. I mean, it's crazy how often they're correct, right?
Mhm.
And so my initial reaction was that this is a type of personality test, but instead of it being how I respond, it's more of a why. Like it's a deeper, it's instead of saying how I'm going to react,
Mhm.
it's predictive of how I'm built. It's an explanation of how I'm built, and that's why I respond this way or that way, or why this feels correct for me and this doesn't. And so it just felt very natural for me to want to explore that, because I'm always seeking wisdom about myself,
Mhm.
and about the world around me. And so if there was a way for me to gain some of that knowledge just beyond that top level, here's your personality. I know my personality. What I want to know is deeper. What am I designed to respond? What am I designed to do? And get some insight on that was really what my goal when I started, just to
Mhm.
get insight on myself.
Mhm. Do you that's such a beautiful way to put this. So because you're right, there is a lot of personality tests out there that tell you a lot about yourself, and human design is different than that. It's not a personality test. It goes a lot deeper, like you said. It goes to the core of who you are, and it's hard to explain. But I remember when we were sitting there and we had everybody was sitting around in a big circle, and then we put up on the screen everybody's chart, and then we, kind of did a quick reading of everybody's chart. Do you remember that
Mhm.
moment? And was there something
Oh,
that was said in that?
absolutely. I remember, and that's why I said it certainly is not a personality test. I don't want to give off that impression, but it has that same feeling. When you read a personality test, you're like, wow, they really pegged me. But usually, then what you do is you put it to the side and you move on with your life. I
Mhm.
remember when you read our charts, everyone in the room just stopped. It was almost like the air just stopped moving, because we were all so shocked at how honest it was and
Mhm.
how different. I mean, you read an entire room of people. There were, I don't know, 8, 10 people in the room. And we were all so different. And
Mhm.
yet every single chart matched exactly who we knew we were. And I
Mhm.
remember that feeling of, I could have easily, if this weren't, if there weren't some truth behind this, I could have easily gotten, the person across from me, their chart, read for me, and it absolutely wouldn't have fit me. No
Mhm.
one else's reading in there would have fit me. I would have said, no, that's not really me.
Mhm.
But we each had the one that just absolutely fit us. And I remember that. I was like, wow, okay, let's see what else there is. Because it
Mhm.
was extremely accurate. And you can tell when there's honesty in things.
Mhm.
You can feel honesty. And it felt like I was giving insight. I was being given insight into me. And I
Mhm.
think everyone in the room kind of felt that way at that time.
Mhm. Yeah. And it was that's how it was for me when I first got introduced to human design. It struck a chord deep in my soul. And I like what you said, like how you explained that like the inner, like the oxygen left the room and everybody was in awe. It is that kind of wisdom that is coming to us that hasn't been available before. And when you recognize it's like we all have this truth about us that lives deep inside of us, but we don't really have access to it all the time. And when you hear somebody say this truth about you and it resonates with that chord deep inside of you, something happened, something's activated, something changed. So, do you remember what was said in the reading, or just that you remember how you felt about it?
I just remember the feeling, and I don't even remember anybody else's chart. I just remember feeling this is really, I want to explore this because this is me. I mean, there were things about it, you know, an open head, open heart, what things were open and closed on me that I just instinctually knew that's correct about me.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I know I have a very strong instinctual, I always had a very strong instinct my entire life. And people, I remember as a young kid, I just know something. And
Mm-hmm.
people would ask, well, how do you know it? I can't tell you how I know it. I just know it. And my whole life I've had that. And I honestly thought everybody had that. And that's on my chart, and it backed that up. And I also know I have a very, so it just matched me. And
Mm-hmm.
then the person next to me didn't match me at all. And I think
Mhm.
that that's the real power in it too, is to see the people around you that don't match you, so that
Mhm.
you see that we are different, we're different, and
Mhm.
you know that, okay, this one really is just for me.
Mhm. Yes, yes. Okay, so then from that initial response, then you felt this pull towards the information. I want to know more information about this. How do I find out more information about this? Do you remember learning about your type or your strategy or your authority? Like, talk about that piece of it. So, your type is generator, and your
Mhm.
strategy is to wait to respond. So, to respond to life rather than go out and make things happen. So let's talk
Mhm.
specifically about that, because that's a very different concept. Oh, I'm not designed to
Yes.
go make things happen. Like, we're taught go make things happen, but in some human design types are designed to respond, not go out and make it happen. So how was that experience for you learning that and playing around with that?
So it kind of was, I don't want to say discouraging, because that's not a good word for it. It wasn't, I took it as a challenge a little bit, because my whole life I had been making things happen.
Mhm.
You know, I focused on grades. I was an excellent student. I made it. I went, bachelor's degree, master's degree, law school, got the big job. Like, I had made it happen. And then I've entered the course at this point in my life where I was trying to make something else happen. Right. I had gone out on my own. I was starting my own law firm. And I was like, I got to make this happen. And so I almost took it as a challenge, really. And I know you call it it's an experiment, to say, okay, if I'm not supposed to make it happen, then how does it happen? And what does not making it happen look like? And so I just kind of took that and started playing around with it. And every time I'd have a decision to make, I'd say, okay, am I forcing this decision, or is it coming to me and I'm just embracing it? So I started kind of playing around with that and decisions with the business. And so I just kept that in the back of my mind. You're just wait for things to come to you, wait for things to come to you. Um, and then I also learned I'm supposed to sleep on decisions, which
Mhm.
is absolutely correct. And I knew, because I've made decisions like that and they turned out horrible. But the decisions that I sleep on for a couple of days, and then I just kind of lose passion for it, or I find a different way to do it, always work out better. So that I knew that was true, even though I didn't like it. I like making decisions like this. Yeah, I knew it was true. I mean, I knew there was truth there.
Mhm.
And then probably one of the biggest keys for me is I learned that frustration
Mm.
is when I am, and I forgot the phrase for what you call,
The not self
um,
theme. So when you're not being
the
true
not
to
self.
yourself.
I was about to say anti-self, so I don't think it's anti-self. But your not self is when you're in a place of frustration for me.
Mhm.
And that was a huge trigger, because I have three small children, and I was in a cycle of just like frustration, bouncing, just frustration, with life and trying to make things happen and the kids. And so I held on to those few little things, and I just kind of played with them.
Mhm.
And every time I had something come to me, I'm like, I don't want to force it. If it's meant to be, it'll happen. I'll let things come to me. And then if the minute I felt frustration, I used that as an indication that something was off. And I would step back and take
Mm.
a breath and not engage in whatever situation I was feeling frustrated by. And I
Mhm.
would say those few little things really led me to continue exploring and want to continue exploring, because once I realized, oh, this really does work. Like, if I do step out, the frustration means something's off. I got to figure out what's off. It's not coming from my sweet angel babies. It's coming from something in me. I'm feeling something that's not quite squared up. Go figure it out and come back. And
Mhm.
that worked for me.
Mhm. And so did you have times of fear when you felt like you needed to make something happen? Like, maybe it was around money or getting clients or building this business. Was there a time that you were experimenting with this and you felt fear?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, absolutely, because um, we feel like if we're not doing something, then
Mhm.
we're not working.
Mhm.
And I think that's, especially as women, I mean,
Mhm.
we feel guilt every time we sit down to have a cup of coffee and watch a movie. I mean, we just do. We feel like I should be doing this, I should be doing that. I can't just sit. And so, especially when you start a business and then you just sit and you wait and you watch. That is very difficult to do. And it's extremely, there were moments of extreme fearfulness where I would say, I've got to do something. I'm being unproductive. I'm not being responsible, just sitting here waiting. I mean,
Mhm.
and I forced myself to just hold off. Now there were times when I did do things, to make it happen. And it was basically ended up being a time waster. And I realized that afterwards because nothing came of it. I'd say, oh, I need to go do this thing. I need to join this group because then I'll get more business. I'm going to go in, and I hated every minute of it. But I was making it happen, and nothing ever came of that. Right. Nothing ever came of that networking breakfast I was going to, or because it didn't feel right. I was doing it to make myself feel productive. When I realized that, I was like, oh, okay, well, then I don't have to, drive to Dallas at 7 o'clock in the morning to go to the networking breakfast, because if there's something there for me, it'll find its way to me.
Mm. Yeah.
But there
Yeah.
were definitely those moments where I was making things happen until I've discovered I'm just spinning my wheels and wasting energy.
Wow, that's powerful. So you're experimenting on both sides. So you're letting things happen and then things would work out and that would show you. And then there were times you were like, I'm making things happen, and you go out and do it and then nothing would come of it. And so then you realized, okay, wait a minute, which one do I want to really focus on and lean into? So part of your design as a generator is to move towards that which lights you up. So we talk about
Mm-hmm.
being lit up. That's an energetic feeling. It's not really something you can uh, pinpoint specifically. It's a feeling that you have internally. So for you, was that easy for you to determine what's lighting you up and versus what's not lighting you up? And how did you make that distinction? And what was that experience like for you?
I think it was very easy for me to see what was lighting me up. I think the harder part was letting go of the stuff that didn't,
Mm,
because it felt irresponsible. Um, in all honesty, it felt irresponsible. Um, because we all have things we just have to do, right? And so it's easy for me to, when I don't want to be doing something, I know it. I mean, we all know it. It's a drag. We're forcing ourselves to do it. There's no excitement in it. There's no joy in it. But we feel like we have to do it. And then the things that we really enjoy and have fun with, those are often the things that we feel like um, are extra.
mhm,
Those are the extra things. And so it was easy to tell what I like and don't like, what lights me up and doesn't. But it's following through with that probably was the more difficult, because you do have to get out of that mindset of that there's some standard you're trying to reach. We have this internal struggle of I can't, I can't appear irresponsible, or I can't let that go. I can't. Why? Why? Who are we trying to impress?
mhm,
I'm just trying to live a life that fills me with joy, fills my family with joy. And if nobody else is impressed by that, I really don't care. But that I wasn't at that point when I started.
mhm,
We have so many outside um, factors that weigh on how we respond and how we treat our business and how we react in our family. And you gotta get rid of the fact that you're trying to impress anybody,
mhm.
except what feels right to you.
Yeah.
Um, and the more I fill myself with joy, it spills over,
Mhm,
and my kids are happier, and my husband's happier, my employees are happier. And if I do things that I hate, it also spills over. I mean,
mhm,
if I have to sit down and do something I just detest doing, everyone around me is miserable. And so we all know that. It's letting go of it and actually embracing it
mhm.
and getting rid of those things that we hate doing and not judging ourselves about it.
Yes.
That's the key.
Yes, and that is an excellent point, and that's really where the hard work comes in. Because 'Cause we're talking about, oh, letting life happen, and it's so easy, and it's so joyful. We talk about all this great stuff, but it does come with hard work. Like, the hard work is still happening. It's happening in a different way. So we're taught to work hard externally, to work hard on what we're doing to make the outside happen. And what human design is asking us to do is do the work on the inside, to let go of that conditioning and those rules of society that say you need to work from sun up to sundown when you have a new business and you've got to make everything happen. Those things that live in our mind will control our behavior, will control what we're doing. And so the hard work is experimenting with this and then not letting those thoughts and those belief systems run us, because that's what's keeping us crazy. So the hard work, there is hard work involved. This isn't the easy peasy way to
Yeah.
have a joyful life, right? It's just the hard work isn't external, the hard work is internal. And when we do the hard work on the
Yeah.
inside, the outside takes care of itself.
Yes.
And you have
Yes.
found
And
that
the
to be
people
true.
around you. Yeah. And it really, and it's contagious. It really is.
Mhm,
When you actually let go and you're in just existing in a happier place,
mhm,
um, when you've eliminated the frustration and the need to constantly be doing, the busyness, get rid of the busyness, focus on what you love and what you're good at. And then get the people around you, surround yourself with the people that want to do the other stuff. And
mhm,
there are people that like the other stuff. I
mhm,
mean, you think that you have to do it all. That's counterproductive. You don't have to pick out the stuff you don't want to do. And there's someone out there that loves that. And that's how we're meant to all fit together.
mhm.
I mean, we're not meant to do it all. We're meant to work together. And that's why I love what I do. My husband loves numbers and I hate them. I mean, I have a person on my team that loves marketing. She loves going out and greeting them. I've built a team that fills my gaps, the things that I don't like, the
Yeah,
things that don't light me up and
yeah.
make me feel heavy. God gives you people, those people that love those things, that light
Mhm,
them up.
yeah.
And so if we learn to do it as a team and we're not by ourselves,
Mhm.
it works together.
Yes, absolutely. 100%. And human design talks about that too. We all have a role to play, and each role is so important. But when we're all trying to be something we're not filling our role. And then the whole of
Exactly.
society is not working. But if each one of us steps into, okay, this is my design, I'm designed to do what I do and be let up about what I do, and then let the other stuff go, then other people can come alongside and do what they love to do. So
Mhm.
we live in a world that 70% of the population are generator types. And they're the ones that have the energy to go, 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 go. So there's 30% of the population that don't fall into the generator type, that don't have the renewable energy source that generators have. And so if those people are trying to keep up with the generators, then they're going to burn themselves out. But if they don't know that, they're designed more to guide us and more to be there to help us, the generators who are doing all the doing. So it's a fascinating, fascinating system. And I'm glad you brought that up.
Mhm.
So how would you say your life would be different had you never learned about human design?
Well, I honestly think human design was a trigger for me. So when I started my business, I started the mastermind. I really didn't have any intention of exploring me. I was starting a new business, and I knew that would have challenges. And so my focus was on the business and growing and making a living and doing what I love. Over here, it really wasn't intended to be about me. But when you open that door to, hey, let's dig into ourselves. Let's make sure we're doing what feels right for our lives, what fills us with joy. Um, you know, learning how to give up the parts of us that don't fill us with joy, and then that not only allowed me to explore other things that make me happy. Like, okay, well, what else? What else can I do that lights me up? It also really led me to other areas of improvement.
Mm-hmm,
And so, I told you I focused on that trigger of frustration.
mm-hmm,
And I just held on to that for so long. Like, if nothing else, I will eliminate the frustration in my life. I
mm-hmm,
will eliminate this feeling of frustration. And I held on to that. And then that led into, well, I'm going to eliminate hurry. I'm going to get rid of the hurry because a lot of my frustration is coming because I'm in a hurry. And then hurry, when I eliminated hurry, that led into, well, I started this philosophy of what's the worst that could happen. I actually asked myself that all the time. What's the worst that could happen? And that eliminated stress and anxiety in all sorts of situations, right? So it's just become this snowball of, okay, I eliminated this. What's next?
mm-hmm,
What's next? And I see that there's so many layers that cause us stress and anxiety and frustration and worry and all of these things that we carry. And there is a way to get rid of those
mm-hmm,
as long as you're being true to yourself and this takes a lot of faith. This
mm-hmm,
takes faith.
mm-hmm.
Um, and my faith is in
And
in God leading me,
right.
and that He has created a universe that supports me.
Mm-hmm,
And I think that human design opens, just get your mind. That's what it does. It gets your mind open. It gets your soul open to saying, how can I be better for me?
Mhm.
And so it was really just a trigger for me to say, okay, I've learned all of this about myself. I agree. This is me. This is my core of who I am. What else can I get rid of in my life? What else is weighing me down? So I
Mhm.
can truly exist most of the day in a place of peace and joy.
Mhm.
And so for me, it was a door. It was a door. And I'm still exploring and I'm still growing. And it's just, it gave me permission. It was like a permission slip
Mhm.
to explore myself, and because I was doing it with a team, right? It wasn't just by myself. I
Mhm.
had I had the other ladies in the group who were all in the same place. So it's like we had a support group. When I
Mhm.
said, okay, I'm going to not do this thing over here anymore because it doesn't light me up and it causes me frustration. It causes me stress. I'm not going to do it anymore.
Mhm.
And the whole group's like, we support you.
Mhm.
Do it. And so I was like, okay, I'm going to do it. The whole group says I should. And so it's that way of, and now I'm to the point where I'm like, if something's not making me happy anymore, I find a way to give it away, or I find a way to hire it out. Or, there's just, it's a permission slip, especially in a group of women who are intelligent and thoughtful and caring, that can kind of be that support system at first to say,
Mhm.
yes, it's not making you happy, give it away,
Mhm.
get rid of it.
Yeah.
I don't know if that answered your question because I don't remember the question.
That actually brings us to the final point is that answered a lot of questions because it's an experiment and you talk about trust. Trust is very important, but how do you get the trust, right? You can get it through spirituality and experience. So when we're experimenting, like, okay, I'm going to test it in this and see what happens, and then it works out. And then your faith grows or your trust grows and your trust in the universe grows, then you can take bigger risks or give bigger things over, and then the trust grows from there. So I like that you brought in the faith aspect of that. And part of following the human design and having your own experiment grows that faith and grows that trust as well. The
Yeah.
final thing I do want to talk about is when we're talking about doing an experiment, because that's what human design talks about. It says, don't listen to what people tell you about yourself. Take the information in and go play with it. Life will show you. You will learn different things about yourself through this process. But a lot of times, the stuff we learn in human design is so counter to what we've learned in society. It's so polar opposite of what we've learned in society that to have that experiment by yourself can be challenging because I know for me, because I was in my own experiment by myself, I remember those moments going, I'm just being crazy. This is crazy. I shouldn't be doing this. Like, this doesn't make any sense to do this, but I'm in this experiment. I'm going to try it out. And then it would work out. But then we had a group where we went through this together, and you brought this up, but having another set of people that are going through a similar experiment and being able not just to verbalize what's going on with you, but watching what other people are doing and how it's working out for them, it solidifies your own experiment with that. So can you talk about what you learned from watching other people as well as your own experience in the mastermind setting?
Um, yeah, so our group was so different, which was, I think, a huge advantage. There wasn't five of me. There was one of me, and then four other completely different designs, personalities, um, energies. And so it, when we, what I saw is that you have to trust it in order for it to work.
Mhm.
And I think I saw two things happen. I think I saw, some of the people really struggle with just trusting and letting it go and truly engaging in the experiment. And I think that makes it even harder because then
Mhm.
you're in a real struggle place, right? You're in your position of struggling between what we're supposed to do. And that's really the big thing here is letting go of what you're supposed to do. And I put that in quotes because there's nothing any of us are supposed to do except exactly what we're called to do. That's the only thing we're supposed to do ever in this planet is what we are called to do. All the other rules that guide us were just made up by some other man at some point, or woman at some point. Um, but if you're stuck in that middle point where between you've seen some honesty about yourself, but you're also trying to still fit the rules and do what you're supposed to do, that's a bad place to be because it's an internal struggle. And that can almost be more uh, difficult than just jumping off the ledge
Mhm.
and just saying, I'm just doing it. And so I think our group was kind of split between us ledge jumpers. I was a ledge jumper because honestly, at that point, I mean, I had already quit my job and gone out on this other ledge. So I was like, oh, I'm already out here. Why not? Let's just jump. Um, and I felt so much truth about it. It didn't really concern me to jump. There's still the struggles of how does this appear to other people because I'm shirking my responsibilities. But the ledge jumpers, the ones who dived into it and really embraced it and really did the experiment, got those what you call those reassuring those moments of, hey, this worked. And it builds you up. When it works, your faith grows. You're more faithful. You try it again, it works. I think the people that never really jumped and couldn't fully immerse didn't get those nuggets. And so
Mhm.
I think that that's why it's so important to just jump. Because if you're stuck in the middle between trying to do what society wants you to do and also trying to explore what makes you happy and what you really want and finding a way to fill yourself with joy while fitting into your place and finding what makes you happy in your calling, it's a dichotomy there that doesn't bring
Mhm.
any resolution.
Mhm.
And you don't get those nuggets of, hey, this worked because you're still trying to live in both worlds.
Mhm.
And that probably was my biggest observation because we all started out the same. And there were a few of us that just totally went for it.
Mhm.
And we got the reciprocal
Mhm.
faith. And
Yeah.
so it's easier to be bigger and bigger and bigger in it and to go deeper.
Yes.
Um, so it has to be something that you're willing to just say, what's the worst that could happen? I find out a whole bunch about myself.
Mhm.
I mean, and I know that seems silly that I ask myself that all the time. What's the worst that could happen in this situation? The worst that could happen is that someone that doesn't even matter thinks you're being irresponsible. I mean, that's really the worst that could happen
Mhm.
is that someone somewhere who's holding you to a standard you don't even care about
Mhm.
um, thinks you're doing it wrong.
Yeah, I remember I got
Who
to,
cares?
yes, there was a story that keeps coming up when you're talking, and I just want to talk about this just a little bit because some of the stuff we're talking about doing in our life is crazy to people who are just immersed in the society. The conversations you and I have today, 3 years ago, we would have been thinking we were insane. Like we wouldn't be having those conversations. And
Mm-hmm.
one of those conversations came up when you wanted to plant flowers on a Tuesday morning at 9 o'clock or 10 o'clock. It was something like
Probably
that. It was
10, probably wasn't 9.
like probably in the afternoon. But for you, it was during the business day, whatever day it
Mm-hmm.
was. It was people were supposed to be at work and you wanted to plant flowers. Now, never mind that you had stayed up till midnight answering emails the night before. Nobody saw that. They're going to see you out in the flower bed when you should be lawyering. Maybe a client that would see you out planting flowers in the middle of the day and think you're not being a good lawyer. Talk about that a little bit.
I do. I remember that day. I remember that day. And I had been up all night working. And it was a beautiful day, one of these first sunny days of spring. And I wanted to be in my flower bed. And I live in my neighborhood. I have several clients in my neighborhood. And I remember thinking, I can't go outside. I can't go and play in my flower beds. What will they think? I'm supposed to be at work 80 hours a week. This is, if I'm not at my desk, they're going to think I'm slacking off and I'm not working hard. And all of those things. And all I wanted to do was play in the dirt. Like it was therapy I needed for me. I needed a day to be outside in the sunshine. I love planting flowers and seeing that new life in the flower beds. And that's what I needed. But I had so much pressure. And it sounds so stupid today because I just don't care anymore. But because I know I'm good at what I do. I know I work hard. I know all of my clients are extremely satisfied with my work. I know those truths. I don't care about the fluff stuff, like why am I on my flower bed at noon planting flowers instead of working? But that day it was so real to me that I had to struggle with it. Um, and it's those things that society say, well, if you're not at your desk during the daytime hours, I mean, and it's not just me, it's all of us. I mean, how many people run errands on their lunch break, see someone they know in the grocery store and immediately feel like they're going to turn them into their boss because they weren't working. It's
Yeah.
this society, this pressure of you're supposed to be behind a desk. And if you're not behind a desk, you're not productive.
Mhm.
And there are days we need to just plant flowers.
Mhm.
And if I don't get out there and have some sunshine, or just those couple hours where I gave myself to play in the dirt, and the joy of seeing those new colorful buds in my flower beds energized me. So the next day I came to work happy and full of joy.
Mhm.
But
Yeah.
it was, I do remember that that was one of the first days I had really said in the middle of the day, I'm just going to do what I want to do.
Mhm.
Um, and now it's silly. And now I've ingrained in my entire team that if there is a day that you need to go plant flowers, don't come to work.
Mhm.
Like, I don't want you here on a day where you feel like you need to be planting flowers,
Mhm.
because that's something you need. And next day you're going to come back and you're going to be filled with joy because of the flowers in your flower bed.
Yes.
And so that's something I've embraced in my law firm and my business with all my employees. And
Mhm.
it's what I hope our society eventually gets to. And that's what I feel like is, that's why I said this is an opening door for us to just grow in all areas of
Mhm.
our life and get that confidence that
Mhm.
we have value that is not dependent on anybody else's standards.
Mhm.
And we have a purpose that is not dependent on anybody else's belief of what we are or are not, or if we're good or not good. What we are and who we are is exactly what it is, independent of what anybody else thinks.
Yes.
My value is what it is.
Absolutely.
And knowing myself and knowing my strengths, knowing what I'm good at, embracing that just allows you to have that confidence of, I know what I bring to the world.
Mhm.
And it's not dependent on me being behind my desk all day long, every day. It's dependent on me staying true to what I know is true.
Mm. So beautiful. Beautifully said. Oh my goodness. I'm not even going to add anything to that. That was perfect. And if
It's a good thing it's
anybody,
not sunny today, or I'd be outside.
yeah, if anybody has ever been to Rivas Law, you know the joy. You can feel the joy when you walk in the door. I absolutely love coming to your office. It's amazing. And you have cultivated that joy. And that is what the world needs more of: more joy, more authenticity. So thank you very much for sharing your experience with us today. I appreciate you so much. And thanks for being a leader in bringing a revolution of more love and more joy in the workplace, in our businesses. Thank you, thank you, thank you for
You're
showing
welcome.
us how to do that.
It's much more fun this way. Anyone who's watching, it's much more fun this way.
Yeah,
It's so fun to come to a place filled with joy and happiness
yes,
and not all these rules. It's just fun.
yeah,
So get rid of the rules.
yes,
There's my plug. Get rid of the rules.
absolutely. Awesome. Okay. Thank you so much.